Hey everyone, Joe here, and today's guest on What's Cracking, I have to say I've been looking forward to just for the background of this. This John Bukowski, and John, I'm so glad to have you here. Thanks for coming on my show.
Well, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and it's one of those things where we start talking sometimes before the show starts and kind of setting things up. And I learned a lot of cool things about you in the show notes. You started out not as a writer in life, but you are a great thriller writer now. But how'd you start?
Yeah, I started as well. I'll go back. If you go back to high school and undergrad, I had three great passions: English reading and writing, been an avid reader all my life, history, been studying military history for 60 years. I hate to
Wow,
say it, and science. And when I
cool.
decided to focus on science, especially I wanted to be a veterinarian, you have to kind of put those other things in the back burner.
Now, why veterinarian?
Um, Part of it was I loved biology, fascinated by
Right.
biology. I liked the idea of clinical medicine. Didn't really want to be a physician, but so I kind of got into the veterinary track early in my undergrad,
Wow.
and uh, you have to have really good grades and you have to really work at it. So those other things just kind of went on the back burner.
Well, right. I mean, it's hard medicine, and it's on, we'll say, patients that can't talk.
Right, right.
You
In
know.
that respect, it's much more difficult because your patients can't tell you things. You have
Yeah.
to go by the owners, and a lot of times they're clueless. So you become very good at physical exams. You become also because of the profit
Right.
or economic situation. There's not like this third party payer that's dishing out all kinds of money. You
Right.
have to be very selective about what you test, what you x-ray, things like that. So you become a very good at diagnostics, at rule outs. What's the most likely thing this is going to be? Let's look for that first.
Well, that's amazing. I'm guessing that's gonna help you writing a thriller then, because you go from the most likely thing and rule everything else first.
Right. Well, it does help in that respect. And it
Right.
also helps if, for example, my first book, Project Suicide, is a medical techno-thriller.
Wow.
Uh, it's a story of how a cure for Alzheimer's is perverted into an assassination drug. Now, high
Really?
profile politicians are killing themselves, and only a drunken genius can save the country. And
Oh
here's
my
a
god.
picture of the cover,
Oh, I love it.
Project Suicide, that came out in 2022. But writing something like that, it was right in my wheelhouse as far
Right.
as writing what you know.
So that was your gateway. You started from, okay, you went from the love of English language and the history, which I always think people should know history no matter what. It's
Right, absolutely.
an essential aspect of life. And the love for science. You leaned into the love for science for a career, and now you're doing back to your original love
Yeah,
of.
I've circled back
Yeah.
basically, and that all really happened when because I had my veterinary degree. I practiced in Michigan for about 7 years, transitioned into public health work, got a master's and a PhD in that. Then, after about 20 years working for government and industry, I went out on my own as a contract epidemiologist and medical writer. I was doing mostly medical writing,
That's amazing.
writing journal articles for people,
Right.
website content, stuff like that. And during the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, business kind of dried up for a while. And I always wanted to write a novel. And I think most people who are writers, no matter what they tell you, you can be a copywriter, you could be a medical writer, love to write a fiction novel.
Right.
And so I set to it. Took me about 6 or 8 months, working almost full time on it, and managed to write one. Now, bear in mind, it's still on my computer and will probably never be published, but it got me started. So even when business picked up, I kept writing. Tried my hand at some other novels, short stories, and stuff,
Right.
and got my first one published through Pathbinder Publishing in
Wow.
2022.
Which is amazing because that trajectory is for those that don't know, and it's probably because you had such a great writing background for the scientific writing
Right.
before, like that 2-year sprint, that's a sprint in writing terms, you know? And I love how you said
Well,
you have the novel.
I started like in 2009, and I got my first one published in 2022.
Oh, yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
that is just typical. If you say
Yeah,
to a successful writer,
absolutely.
what was your first book? They go, the first book I wrote or the first book that got published. Because
Always the key.
there's usually like 7 or 8 books that didn't get published
Yeah.
before the one that got published.
Yeah, we all have somewhere in our drunk drawer, or now I guess computer files,
Right.
uh, that one book they're like, what's this file again? Like, oh, I wrote this when? Do you
Yeah,
ever go back?
Stephen King calls them trunk novels
Yeah,
back when he
lock
was
them in.
doing it in paper.
They will never see the light of day. Now, have you ever gone back though and go like, okay, not even just for fun, but just an actual, can you see it now and go, I can save this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly up until I got my first one published, I had about 8 or 9 that I had written.
Right.
And I've gone back, and a couple of those have been cleaned up, and they're out now, for example.
Great.
Checkout Time, which is my second book, I probably wrote about 5 years before it was released in 2023.
Right.
That's about an arsonist who is extorting hotel chains. Pay me or I'm going to bomb your hotels. And he's pursued by a government researcher and a beautiful FBI agent until he turns the tables and the hunters become the hunted.
There you go.
So it kind of, we got a cat and mouse game going.
I love those.
But
love
that
those.
was 2023. And I have another book. Well, I just came out with The Peeper, which is about a serial killer who takes eyelids as trophies. Here's The Peeper.
Nice.
And that came out just May 5th, I think. That's through Rogue Phoenix Publishing.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, man.
Yeah. And I've got one coming out I've got a sequel coming out soon to Project Suicide called Bad Pennies. And then I've got another book coming out. I don't know when. We just finished the developmental edit on it. And that's with Page Turner Books. And I'm guessing it'll come out before Christmas. But that's a little different for me because it's not a thriller. It's what they call in the industry chick lit, which basically means like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, it's bread and butter.
It's women's fiction, although I think anybody would like it. That's called And a Child Shall Lead Him.
Well, that's great. That's a great title for it.
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing it. And people who don't know, I would tell them, if you really want to see what sells, go to your local bookstore. I said this last week. Like, walk past all the candles, walk past all the the knickknacks, because now that's what they sell because people don't buy books at the store. See how much shelf space you have for your genre. And that's the one that's going to be making money. And like that genre is also like the airplane genre. It's the airport one. It's the hallmark, because no one wants to read anything horrible on the airplane.
Well, I can tell you right now that the number one genre by far is romance novel.
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely
strips everything else by like 3 or 4 times.
Like shelf space.
Second is thriller. Now there's lots of different types of thrillers: techno-thrillers, crime thrillers, medical thrillers, military thrillers, whatever, horror thrillers.
Right.
But yeah, it's way up here is romance, and then thriller, and everything else under it.
Everything else, and yeah, it's one of those sobering moments, and I love that. As an author, did you do the research before you started writing thriller?
I do the research probably while I'm doing it.
Okay.
And research is funny. I teach a thing on research for fiction writers. Sometimes I've taught it at Imaginarium conference a couple of times in Louisville, Kentucky. Research is really important because it's that thing that makes your lie believable. Fiction writing is a lie. You're telling a story. You're making stuff up. But you want it to be believable. Those people will get into it. And research allows you to do that. They'll go, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yes.
But a little goes a long way.
Yeah.
And you can become obsessed with the research that you do. And now your book reads like a technical manual.
Yes.
Or James Michener, which is okay for James Michener, but you don't want 120 pages on how the mountains were formed, necessarily.
No, it's Melville's Moby Dick, the footnote that goes to 12 pages.
You want it to be. It's not, the story's not about the research. It's the spice. The story's about the characters, how they overcome their obstacles that are facing them, what they're trying to get, their interactions, et cetera, et cetera. That's the story.
Right. The research is just the sprinkles, as I would say.
It's that little thing that makes them say, wow, he knows what he's doing. I'm going to believe it.
Yep. And if you've ever watched, you had the medical background. Have you watched anything on TV that was a medical drama and you're like, oh, they just got this wrong?
Oh, a funny story about that. This is a little side.
Yeah.
But my wife is also a veterinarian, and she was for many years the editor-in-chief of the Merck Veterinary Manual, a very prestigious veterinary book.
Yeah.
And once I forget what show it was, but they contacted her because they wanted to use her book as a prop. They wanted it to be on the shelf, and the guy would, pull it off and make some decision about, how he was going to proceed.
Right.
And the thing they wanted to do as the animal disease that they had was anal glands, which are two little glands basically at the butt.
Yeah.
Where they secrete a foul-smelling secretion that sometimes gets blocked. And when it does, it's painful to the dog and such as that. And you discover it on physical exam. But they wanted it to be blood tests. And she goes, well, you would never take a blood test to diagnose anal glands. And they go, well, we know, but we thought it'd be funnier. We thought it'd be more interesting. So, you see that all the time. And people in the know notice it.
And so that's amazing because like my mom, who was a nurse, would watch medical dramas just go nuts sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then not even knowing that they do it on purpose sometimes. Like they actually know the answer. Like, no, we have to make it for TV.
Well, I mean, even people like Stephen King, if you know firearms at all, he will have a person put a silencer on a revolver, which is not possible. He will have somebody click the safety on their Glock, and Glocks don't have safeties, manual safety anyway. So, stuff like that, it makes you roll your eyes. Yeah. And if there's too much of it, you're just going to stop reading, which is, boom, you don't want that. That's where research comes in.
Absolutely. It's, for me, watching some of the TV shows where they do have silencers, but they're all on. Oh, not silencers. They all have safeties, but they're all on. Like the safeties, I'm like, how are they shooting the safeties on? Like, why?
Well, you see another thing where like Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive, he pulls his Glock and then he racks it back, racks the slide back. You don't carry it that way. You carry it with the already racked because you don't have time when you're in a serious situation.
Okay.
I'm
glad you brought that up because I never I'm like, it has to be for a show because who the hell does this?
No, you wouldn't carry it like that. No cop would carry it like that. There's a safety built into the trigger, which makes it pretty safe.
Yeah, I was like, might as well just leave the cartridge out. Okay, so we have this, and we're going into the research bit of it. Do you think your PhD helped the research end?
I think what the main thing the PhD helped, not so much what I learned in my public health degree, my doctorate, although I have used bits and pieces of that in other things. But the main thing that it helped me with was working on a doctoral dissertation, doing the research, then doing the writing. Yeah. It's a multi-year task that seems, wow, can I do this? This is a lot.
Yeah.
But you learn I'm doing a little bit every day. And that's novel writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sit down and write me a 90,000 word thriller. It's like, wow, that's a daunting task. Write me 600 words a day. It's going to take you 6 or 7 months, but you're going to get a first draft. And And you can do that. You can do 600 or 700 words a day, or a
Yeah.
thousand words a day, or whatever your word count is.
No, that's a brilliant way. I went through again before the show. I was pointing out mine PhD as well, and I think the schedule. I think you're right. Like the ability to know that I forgot how long mine was. I think near 100,000. You know, what the word count for your PhD is, especially you have to do the research on your own. You have to do all this stuff. You know, writing on your own. And what people don't understand sometimes, unless they went through it like you and I did, is the scheduling. That's your own too.
Right.
Like you have to keep on. You train is you. The train is you.
I always tell people with fiction writing, you have to treat it like a hobby and a business.
Yeah.
It's got to be a hobby because you do it because you want to. You do it
Right.
because it's fun or you're driven to do it or whatever. But it's got to be like a business. You got to sit down every day or nearly every day and set yourself a goal and do some writing.
Right. Absolutely. Now, when you're doing your writing and you have multiple books through different publishers,
Right.
have you ever gone and just saying, you know what, I'm writing this one book. My future book is for this publisher, or is it the book first and then finding?
Typically, what I've done is the book first and then finding.
Okay.
But now having several publishers who like my stuff,
right,
it's easier to say,
yes.
I've written this. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
With Page Turner Books, where I'm working with now on And a Child Shall Lead Him, I have a horror thriller that I'm also have completed. It's actually in multiple. It's probably about the fourth draft. And I said to them, would you like to see this? And they said, yeah. So they're looking at that now. So it's a way to get in the door. I've only worked with publishers. I've never self-published. Some people do, and that's fine. But I've always worked with publishers, so you get some all the stuff with cover design and things like that. They already have people for.
Yeah, I've done both sides, and it's a different beastie.
Yeah,
you know, we'll say it's a different beastie. And you're right. If you have that one publisher who likes your work, and you're a decent person, which I believe you are, they will actually welcome more work
yeah.
with you because you're pleasant. It's like, this is great. Well, you're not a unknown risk. You are a known quantity.
I also write short stories. I've had 21 of them published so far in magazines and
Right.
anthologies and such. And I put together an anthology of my own with 19 of them because two of them are still contractually I can't republish them. But so I've got 19 of them, and that's also something I'm going to be pitching to publishers over the next 6 months or so.
Absolutely. And anthologies are cool, especially if you're a short story writer. I think that's where the eventual end game is. So you're saying you have most of them rights reserved back to you. Were the two just too soon? So the rights will come back to you?
One of them's not even out yet. It's been accepted.
Oh, wow. That's way too soon.
But it probably won't be out until like November or something.
Right.
Then it'll be like 6 months before I can have it back.
Right.
And another one, I think they had 2 years, and it was published last year. So
it's fair.
So most of them say once we've published it, you do what you want.
Right. Or X amount of time, or like give a tagline saying first appearing in Museum of Terror, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And you naturally put that in the front matter of your anthology.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever been approached by a publisher who said, give us money?
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
And they vary. There are hybrid presses, which some of them are very good. They say, you get the lion's share of the royalties, but you have to pay us up front for editorial.
And
that can be anything from like $1,000 to $5,000 or whatever.
Right.
But if they're legitimate, that's a way to go. There's also vanity presses who basically say, your stuff's great. Whatever you've got, we want to publish it. And then they charge you like $10,000 or $12,000 because that's where they're making their money. They're not making any money on royalties. But traditional presses, for example, Page Turner that I'm working with now, they're an actual traditional press. They do a run of 5,000 books and see how that does. They don't do KDP, uh, uh, print on demand, and so those are great.
Yeah, 5K. That's a pretty good limited run right there. And then have you for your short stories, you also read I'm guessing you read your contracts for short stories. Is there anything that made you go like, no way, I'm not touching this as a short story author?
Oh, what do you mean? But for something in the contract?
Yeah, like for example, rights. Like we not even you retain your rights. Like we get your rights forever. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I've
actually,
seen that before.
the one that has the 2 year thing, they had the rights forever, and I
Oh,
just said,
wow.
I said, or it was a long time, and I said,
Right.
well, I don't want to do that. I said,
Yeah.
I think 2 years would be fair.
Yeah. You haggled them from
Sure, just put it in
eternity
the
to 2 years.
contract.
Yeah. No. And that's the thing. If you are a new writer, you might not know all of these ups and downs. Like some publishers, as you were saying, they have the hybrids, you have the traditional, which is also indie, you have vanities. And I've seen some presses who are vanity also retain your rights. I'm like, you paid them 10 grand and they get your rights too? Like,
Yeah,
what is this?
that's bad. Yeah,
That's robbery.
you gotta look at the contracts.
Yeah.
I'm working as a technical writer. Uh, I looked at an awful lot of contracts with big companies and stuff, and they're always looking to protect themselves the most. And you have to argue with them
Yeah.
sometimes with their lawyers, especially about liability issues. You
Always.
know, that's more a technical writing thing than it is fiction writing. Although that can be an issue if you're
Slander and
cast and
libel.
loose with
Yeah.
things. But so yeah, you gotta look at the contracts, and you gotta know, and you can tell what's boilerplate and what's they've inserted specifically to
Yeah.
protect them and that kind of stuff.
Well, good for you. I mean, I think more authors should take that part seriously, the contract.
Yeah,
Like, oh my God, a contract for me to sign. Like, no, read it. Really read it. And I love what you said after that. Talk to them again, saying, hey, I like this, and this. Can we change this?
yeah. And I think another thing that especially new authors have to learn is, everybody wants an agent, for example.
Right.
It's very hard to get an agent. They're looking for specific things with specific types of people,
Yeah.
potential blockbusters in specific genres and stuff. It's very difficult. But there are publishers, traditional publishers, that you can go to directly without an agent. That's what I've done. But also bear in mind that when an agent looks at your work and says, "Oh, a query letter or whatever," they say, "Yes, send me the first 10 pages, or send me the book, the manuscript, or whatever." People immediately think, "I've got a sale." But what it really means is still 99% of the time, they're going to pass. You have to be prepared for that. And it's even harder. You have to be prepared that for probably about 75% of the time, they're not even going to tell you that they passed. They're just not going to respond to you. They're not going to respond to your follow ups.
Yes.
It goes into the trash pile.
The original ghosting. Yes.
Ghost you.
Yeah. It's like Gen Z doesn't ghost. Agents and publishers ghost.
Non-response is the most common rejection.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's better with short stories. Most of them get back to you and say A or nay.
The form letter. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And okay. I give this advice, and you tell me if you agree or disagree or whatever. For people who want to become writers, I'm like, were you the popular kid in school? Like, yeah. I'm like, no, not for you. Like, were you ever rejected in school? Like, yeah, no, never. I'm always no. Sorry.
Yeah, it's certainly tougher. You have to
Yeah.
the rejection is the norm.
Yeah, that is absolutely. The rejection is the norm.
If you get something where it's even a small triumph if they say, "I liked your query letter, send me the first 10 pages." Right. Or, "I liked your 10 pages, send me the manuscript."
Right.
Those are positive things.
Yeah.
You may even get positive, rare occasions, get positive feedback from a publisher or a agent that says, right, "I liked it, but the main character didn't grab me. Work on that." Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you get, "Thank you for submitting, it's not me, your writing stinks," form letter, that's kind of uncommon. Mostly you just get crickets.
Yeah.
And
But
you
you
follow up,
better.
send them another email and you get crickets.
The black hole. The black hole is the answer.
Right, right.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. So write me, okay, you're taking your way through a sequel right now. Do you ever write with a series in mind?
I really don't. And I know that's a big thing now. And I don't for a couple of reasons. Number
Right.
one, if the book becomes relatively popular and a lot of people, or at least several people, ask me, "Oh, we're going to do a sequel or something,"
Right.
I'll think about it then. If I have a good
Right.
idea for what a sequel might be,
Right.
uh, I'm working on a sequel right now for "And a Child Shall Lead Him" as well. And that is not even out yet. Bad Pennies, that's actually on Amazon, but they haven't. It was supposed to be released earlier in May, and they haven't released it yet. So we're fighting with Amazon. But Bad Pennies is actually out there if you want to go to Barnes and Noble or something.
There you go.
But so yeah, but so a couple reasons. If I have a good idea
Right.
and think it will be interesting for people, yeah. But it's also if you write a book and you get it out there and it doesn't get much traction, do you really want a sequel to something that didn't get much traction? Because people
Right.
aren't going to usually start by reading the sequel.
Right.
They'll start by reading the first book. And so I usually think, if you have an idea for a new characters, new plot line, whatever, maybe that's better. I know
I think
agents
that's
are
good.
always looking for people to write series, but at the same time, when an agent takes you on, they think it has some potential for
Yeah.
generating a lot of buzz. So,
And that, I think you hit it on the head, because especially if your first book in a, let's say you have a 4-book series in your mind and the first book tanks and you already started writing the second and
yeah,
third, like, oh, that's a lot of time just lost.
yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I at conferences and stuff, I run into a lot of people who self-publish, and they go, I kind of like to get my book out there quick, and I don't spend a lot of time editing and stuff, which I go, okay, so you're going to get a book out there that is going to be crappier than it could be,
Yeah.
and that's what people are going to recognize as your work.
Yeah.
They're gonna start to read that and go, you know what? I'm not reading this guy anymore.
I hope you have a pen name. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Because you're
even
going
if
to be
you come
burned.
out with something great after that, you've
Yeah.
already kind of shot yourself in the foot.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so that's why editing, oh my God, editorial work is
Crucial.
so important. You personally should have gone through it 4, 5, 6 times
Yeah.
and revised it. Taking some time between each revision so you get fresh
Absolutely.
eyes when you look at it. Then get it to one or two beta testers, beta readers.
Right.
Let them take a look at it, give some recommendations, revise again. Then, if you get it to a publisher, their editorial input is so important.
It has to be. It has to be. And a lot of people, even if you go through the self-published route, the only thing you're skipping, instead of taking it to a publisher, you have to get a professional editor. You cannot edit yourself. You can edit your drafts, but what
Right,
the final product, because your mind will fill in all those gaps that's missing in the book.
right.
They won't be missing to your
Absolutely.
mind.
There's no way you can read it the way a reader will read it.
Correct. And the
And an
betas
editor,
are,
a good editor, does
yep.
that. And more importantly, they know how to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how you mentioned the betas, because I've seen people like, why do I need a beta reader? Because you need feedback that's not you.
Right. And it's not, the beta reader can't be your sister who goes, I liked it. That doesn't help you.
No.
Uh, but the people I'm working with now at Page Turner, for example, this is one of the best acceptances I got, because they said, we really like the writing. Here's what's really great about it. Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
I love the characters, dialogue, blank, blank. And then they said, and here's why it's not yet ready to be published. Boom, 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 boom,
Yes.
boom. And the past 4 months, we've been working on the second path.
Excellent. And that's the key word was not yet
Right.
ready. Absolutely. And you need someone to say that. You need someone as an author, especially. You need that not yet ready.
You need to develop a thick skin. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
these are your kids, you know,
Yeah.
and somebody's going to tell you, I don't like the way your kid's behaving. You know, you can't go, what do you mean? That's my kid,
My precious little darling.
you know,
Yeah,
and that's a kill your darlings thing. You have to learn to like,
absolutely.
okay, take me by the hand. What do you think it needs?
Yep.
And hopefully, if you're a good enough writer, they can tell you what they think it needs, and you can say, I know how to fix that.
Yes.
I know what I can do to make it that way for you. And that's the perfect author editor collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this goes back to like some of your earlier drafts that are now coming out or have some might not see the light of day. It's an old Pete Carielli was a comedian, or still is, I guess. He used to say, "There's no such thing as an unfunny joke. It's a joke you haven't been strong enough to tell yet.
Right.
There's no such thing as a bad book. It's a book you haven't been strong enough to write yet."
I saw Jerry Seinfeld interviewed, and he says, you know, he'll work on a joke for 6 months. The way to deliver it, you know, he's working on other stuff too, but he'll keep
Right.
going through different ways of delivering it and stuff,
Absolutely.
you know. And so you're right; it's very similar to that,
Tweaks. Yeah.
and, and that's true. It's like stuff you wrote 3 years ago. If you go through it again, you're a much better writer now, hopefully.
You better be.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're gonna be able to make it better. You're gonna see, wow, that really doesn't work. That feels flat to me while I'm
Yeah.
reading it.
And you can make it better from that.
It needs fleshing out, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's
Absolutely.
usually in my case. It's as a technical writer years ago. You tend to get to the meat right away. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
You know, make it understandable, make it clear. Tell the results and get on. And fiction writing's not like that as much. It still has to be clear and understandable, but you're building characters, you're building plot, you're building emotions.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn to take your time.
Put the flesh on, put the muscles in, put the sinews on, you know, develop the body. Like the technical writing is more of the skeletal. You got the skeletal system and let's go. That's
Right.
all you need. Now it's like, okay, now we have to dress it.
And the other thing, you know, as people always say, well, what do you tell people who want to be writers? Write a lot and read a lot,
Oh yeah, read a lot.
especially in your genre. I hear people say, well, I don't want to read, you know, my genre because that will influence. It's like, yeah, it will influence to a certain degree, but it'll make it better. You
Yeah.
can't learn how to build a house without a blueprint.
No, it's like I always find like, oh, I don't want to read because I might get like the influence, or I might, did I steal their idea? I'm like, no, like there's like 2,000
Oh,
books
I love when
today.
people say, I don't want to put my work out there because someone might steal my idea or my writing. Yeah, probably not a big
No, yeah,
problem.
exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't just start tossing out, if you have really great ideas for books, I wouldn't just start tossing them out to anybody.
Right.
But, you know, people don't steal writing as much as you think they would.
No, no, and it's like trying to steal a drop of water from the ocean. Which
And
drop are you
it's a
taking?
little egotistical, you know. My
Yeah,
writing's so great that they're going to want it. It's like,
I
well,
must steal
maybe
that.
it is, maybe it's not, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like Shakespeare probably did it first. Shakespeare probably did most of your ideas anyway. So,
and
you know,
most people don't understand that if you've written something and you have evidence that you wrote it, you sent it in an email to somebody, it's got copyright.
yeah,
It's copyright protected. It's not officially copyright protected in Washington,
no, the act of doing it.
but it's copyright protected because you have
Yeah,
evidence that you wrote it and uh, transmitted it to someone or whatever.
it's a reasonable chain of evidence.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a reasonable test on it. Now, okay, wow. I just looked at the time. Wow, I said like 20 minutes before, like, oh, we'll do 20, maybe 30. Well, guess what? So if you were, I asked this of all my guests, if you were to give younger you some advice, and this could be from your teenage years or from whatever, what would the advice be?
Actually, it would be from later. It would be start writing earlier. You know, fiction writing. I
Right.
did a lot of fiction writing in school, as everybody does, for class and things like that.
Right.
And I enjoyed it, and teachers liked it. And when I started doing technical writing, one of the reasons I got into that is the companies I was working at were like, we got something that's important to write. We want you to write it, and I felt good. I liked doing it. So I put it on the back burner for too long. And I just wished I would have started, instead of starting in my 50s, started in my 30s or 40s.
Right.
Could have got more books out there. I still think I have a reasonable career ahead of me, but
Absolutely.
but yeah, that for me personally, that's what it would be.
Well, that's amazing, and that's another thing. You can start writing at your 50s. It's not an MBA career.
Right.
This is where the mind and the body starts going ramping up, and that's beautiful. That's a great advice, man.
It's like a character actor. I did some 15, 20 years of community theater
Yeah,
in
am
New
drums.
Jersey and Ohio, and they need people of all types, all ages, whatever. You don't have to worry. Could I do this? I'm 56 years old. Well, yeah, there's a character that's in their 50s. You
Yeah,
can.
exactly. Like, have you seen the plays lately? There's always a character of some age.
So it's like that.
Yeah,
You can start at any time, just like painting. Grandma Moses.
that's a callback. That's a callback for a wow. Yeah, and I really appreciate that. Now, John, where can we find your works right now? Do you have a central website? Do you have
I do have a website. It's thrillerjohnb.net, JOHNB.
cool?
But you could also, I just got it up and running. I have an author's page on Amazon,
Nice.
and that's jbukowskiauthor.com.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, John, it's been a pleasure talking to us. I love like when my academic side and my writing side can come together. It's always a great conversation for me.
Yeah,
I
I
love it.
enjoyed it. Thanks.
Oh, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And you know what? I hope to have you on again another time if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, I'd love it. Matter of
Follow up.
fact, when And a Child Shall Lead Him comes out, we can chat
Absolutely.
about that.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.